Okay. All right. Now that I'm sure that we're actually recording, a wizard is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to. But I'm not a wizard. I'm just late. Just helping a friend with some stuff. I've got one of those friends who, if you get involved with them for a little bit, they almost always knock you off course of your schedule. But enough of me being mean. Now is time for the campaign diary with a little bit of extra background to boot. So, last Saturday, I had my usual game with my game shop group. I run 5th edition D&D for some people at my local game store. Right now we're going through this big pyramid desert dungeon that I built, and they finally got through the remainder of the little trap rooms. Basically, there's a door with an outline of a depression of a scorpion in it, and then there are like 3 pairs of rooms in the hallway before. They're all identical. Each pair has a piece of like a gold pressed plate, like that's the front, shaped in the front of a scorpion, or the middle of a scorpion, or the back of a scorpion, like its tail. And so it's basically 2 rooms, 2 tails, 2 rooms, 2 torsos, etc. And you have to figure out which one is which. Or if my players go, well, let's get both. Let's get both. Maybe we need all of them. Which is a wonderful player character type attitude to have. And like, hey, I'm here for it. They had finished dealing with the last like 3 rooms out of 6 that they wanted to deal with. One of the rooms has like one of the true scorpion plate rooms has the plate, but instead of any traps around it, it's coated in this highly acidic chemical that burns anything it touches, and that's its trap, basically. And eventually they like got around that, but they kept on holding up the pieces together, expecting the pieces to like snap together or something. Even though my intention was, well, you just put the pieces in the little depression. They hadn't looked at the door, so they didn't know about the door and its scorpion depression. So they kept on putting it together. Like 3 different times, I ended up saying, hey, there are no prongs on the pieces or anything. Like, you hold them up and they fit together. And one time when they held them up together, they hadn't cleaned off the acid piece, so it deformed one of the other pieces, which was kind of fun, at least for me, because when they got to the big door and they first went, okay, let's put all the wooden pieces in. And they put all their wooden pieces that are painted to look like gold. They're fake pieces, basically. Tricks. They put the wooden pieces in the door initially, and then the door has a trap, which is this pressurized salt trap that I stole from the Brendan Fraser Mummy movie because I think it's cool. They put all the wooden pieces in the door, and it sprays, and it hurts the person. They don't make their. I think the new paladin player we have put them in, sprays. They got hurt. Okay, now let's put the gold pieces in. And so I had mentioned a couple times that like one of the pieces is deformed. I clearly wanted it to matter, but at the same time, it didn't make sense to me for it to be like, well, the door won't open at all, because like some of the pieces are as they should be. So when they put the pieces in, I improvised, greetings, Snooter, and good morning to you as well. So when they put all the pieces in, I improvised basically that the trap would still spring, but it would unlock half the door. So another person got hurt, but they unlocked half the door and then like wedged it open carefully and saw the chamber that lay before them, which I talked about a little bit last stream, is where my Scorpion King boss was waiting for them along with stuff. I had been waiting for this. I'd been looking forward to this because I thought I had like a good idea for it. And also I had another idea I made like a channel status thing where I said, I'm making YouTube video right now. And it was because in the morning I had thought, you know, Duelist Kingdom and Battle City Yu-Gi-Oh! Is useful for making better boss fight structure, I think. And that update of I'm making a YouTube video was me like trying to type out a script, like bang out a script, and use this Scorpion King boss fight as an example. The end of the script saying, and I'm going to test it literally tomorrow. I thought it'd be fun, but I kind of lost steam on it. So the script exists, and maybe I will still make that video. But my ultimate like argument was, oh, in Yu-Gi-Oh, there's the opening play where whoever the protagonist of the duel is fighting makes their opening move, the first thing that the protagonist has to respond to. Their like strategy reveals itself. And then there's a second point that I call their trump card, where the player, the person playing them overcomes that strategy, and then the person they're fighting goes, "Ha, you fool! You didn't realize that I had this secret strategy that I had been putting in place all along." And then the protagonist goes, "Oh no!" And then they do this other thing. It evolves, and then once the person in the duel, the protagonist of the duel, overcomes that, then there's a final play, one last ditch effort that speeds us towards a conclusion one way or another. And I had been feeling a little self conscious about the Scorpion King fight. I thought it was a little too simple. And I took this method to it. And I was real happy and proud. And I was like, all right, awesome. This is going to be great. And now, here, I'm going to live talk about how that went. Basically, after I took like my own method to it, I was like, okay, perfect. It's fifth edition, so we should assume that we should assume that the fight will change in like one round because the players are strong, and that's just kind of how it goes. So I had my Scorpion King dude, which was one mistake I made with the fight. Spoilers. I kept on calling him the Scorpion King, and I was so in my head about that, I didn't actually describe him. So there were a couple times where people who had not seen that movie, seen the second Brendan Fraser Mummy movie, were like, "So what exactly does he look like?" I get the scorpion tail is involved, but like what? And that was a bummer. I really should have given an actual description, but oh well. So basically, the fight was structured like this. I was going to have Mr. Scorpion King guy, and for the benefit of anybody who watches this and is in the same place of I didn't see that, uh, he's basically human torso and like upper arms on like a scorpion torso body with a tail, like a scorpion tail, and instead of hands, he's got scorpion claws. And you can also Google it if you're just watching and you're like, what is it? There we go. Scorpion King guy is going to be hiding in a crevice. The room itself is technically 40 feet by 40 feet. And there are 10-foot wide centaur, but scorpion instead of horse. The snooter nails a better explanation. In this room, it's 40 feet by 40 feet, and there's this 10-foot wide trench around the bottom of the room and around the top of the room that borders them. And then there are some pillars that connect the trenches, and then there's like floor and ceiling. There's like 15 foot of space between floor and ceiling. Scorpion King is up in one of the trenches in the ceiling. And the way that I planned it is, okay, the players are going to come in. Scorpion King is going to make a surprise sting attack unless someone like spots him ahead of time. That first attack should be a good way to sneak in some damage, unless it misses, of course, but it should be an exciting start to it. And then the actual flow of the fight is going to be thus. This boss fight's opening play is going to be summoning several giant scorpions to join him. And basically, the Scorpion King boss's strategy was going to be he's going to scuttle towards someone. These giant scorpions are going to provide flanking partners for him. In 5th edition, flanking is an optional rule, but basically, if you're hemmed in by like 2 enemies, those enemies get advantage on their attacks against you. They get to roll 2d20s and take the higher. So the opening play is here are some giant scorpions that are going to be fighting you while the Scorpion King guy scuttles down and uses them to get flanking on people. That was my plan. The opening play, summon giant scorpions, they'll flank. Scorpion King will do his thing where he like claw, and then tail is how his attacks go. But if he hits with one claw, he grapples you. And if he hits with another claw, you're restrained, which means even worse things for the player. Though maybe a little redundant if you're already flanking, but whatever. And if he could grab you both ways, he was going to take you up into the trench again and then sting you. So he has cover from enemies, from players trying to like help their other character out. That was basically his strategy. I'm going to come down, I'm going to flank with these giant scorpions, I'm going to try to claw you, and if I get enough claw attacks on you, I'm going to skitter away with you where your friends can't help you, and then sting you. And if that doesn't work, I will sting you, and then I will retreat. That was going to be his opening play. And then I figured after another round goes by, the players will have crunched through those giant scorpions pretty easily, especially since the barbarian does a ton of damage. So then, on round 2, once those big giant scorpions are gone, killing those giant scorpions, they're going to drop little scorpion swarms. And then those scorpion swarms are going to be part of the trump card. My Scorpion King boss, when it stings you, its poison is so corrosive and acidic. Even though it does a bunch of damage, if it literally stings you 3 times, you just melt from the inside out, was a thing that the boss had going for it. If you get healed between stings, your body solidifies enough that that's not going to happen. So if we thought about it in terms of counters, each time the Scorpion King stings you, you get a poison counter, just making up a name at random. And if you get healed, you can take it off. But if you get 3 counters, you're just dead. You just melt. And that was part of like, oh, it's going to flank. It's going to be cool. But then the trump card, after 1 round has gone by, I was like, okay, all the giant scorpions will have been killed after 1 round, but the scorpion swarms will be there. Scorpion swarms, insect swarms in 5th edition can go into player character spaces, which means if you want to AoE them, you'll be hurting your allies. Players will probably do that anyway, but I thought, some of them will still be around. Turn 2, trump card, he's going to command his scorpion swarms to cover people. 1 swarm per 1 character. I assumed that some swarms would be dead by this point. And then, when he stings someone who is covered in scorpions, which are also stinging and doing their little bit of damage automatically now, a sting from the Scorpion King on a covered and enveloped character counts for 2 tokens instead of 1. We ramp things up. You overcame his opening play of the giant scorpions and flanking, but now his trump card, the little swarms that have come out from killing those giant scorpions, and then if I sting you, you get 2 stings worth of venom instead of 1, making you that much closer to death. And then I figured round 3, when people have overcome being enveloped by scorpion swarms, which I assume just meant they would hurt each other, but just enough to get the scorpion swarms off, because that's how players work. The final round, the Scorpion King would eat whatever would draw into him, what would suck up whatever swarms were still left. He'd heal a little bit. He'd enter a stinging frenzy thing, and then instead of making like claw tail attack, he would rush somebody. He'd make 3 sting attacks, and then from then on, for the rest of the fight, he would sting anyone who hit him. He'd like counter sting everybody as well. And that would really ratchet it up and be a final dangerous but swift rush to a conclusion because now people are scrambling and doing what they can. That was my plan. Round 1, round 2, round 3. All right, let's test this. And I got to test it. Second stage of the boss fight, and then third stage of the boss fight, in theory. I got to test it, and it absolutely did not go as I planned, which is fine, but slightly disappointing. The first problem, which I in the back of my head picked up on, but was like, now compensate for that, is the whole sting token thing. If the Scorpion King is only stinging once, are people going to have that many tokens on them? Probably not. So the sting, if you get stung 3 times, you're dead, that really only is threatening if you're being stung a lot, and you're not. And at the time I was like, okay, well, the giant scorpion stings will also count for 1, and that's kind of how I'll balance it. Also, I'll try to use legendary actions on the Scorpion King boss to maneuver for another sting. Legendary actions are things that some powerful enemies have, where they get to take these little mini turns when a player's turn ends. So they get to take them between players' turns. This is cool, except for 2 things. 1, they're very easy to forget. I forget them all the time. I did a decent job of not forgetting this time, but they're easy to forget, and that sucks. The second thing is, he still had to take some time to maneuver, so he still didn't end up stinging that much. The giant scorpions did not end up evening things out like I had hoped, but I should probably roll back a little bit and say the fight started with 1 player going in and scouting things out and getting stung and clawed and nearly killed. That was cool, but it meant that other people weren't in the room yet. So it made things a little wonky. It's not how I pictured it, but I really should have pictured it that way, because who's not going to send 1 person to scout first? That's on me. So I thought, okay, 1 person's been stung, they know about the stings. Even if the Scorpion King isn't going to sting that much, the other giant scorpions are going to count for it. We're going to make it a little more dangerous. Those giant scorpions got stunned. Immediately, I assumed, okay, the players are going to respond to the giant scorpions. And they did, but one of them did by going, well, I have this really cool magic hammer that can, potentially stun enemies in an area, and I'm going to use that to try to stun them. These giant scorpions all failed their saves. None of them got to sting at all. Which, on the one hand, this is good. Players using their tools to respond to the fight, good. But it exposed a potential problem in that, it's not even a problem. This is just something that happens and is fine, but it did mean, okay, so only 1 person got stung. The sting part may as well not exist. And it was the same way for the rest of the fight. The giant scorpions had too much health. Well, not too much health, but I assumed the players were going to crunch right through them. They did not. The giant scorpions stuck around for longer than I intended, which meant the flow was not as I had predicted. It was okay, but they were also stunned and failed to escape that stun, the second turn that they got. So, whatever. They did drop the little scorpion dudes, the scorpion swarms. But by the time they were all dead, it was we were 3 rounds in, and the Scorpion King's doing his own maneuvering and attacking and whatever. He really hurt the pet dragon that one of the players rides on, because one of the players was I want to be a ranger, but I also want to be a dragon rider. And being me, I was like, that's cool. Here's dragon. Let's do it. It was a egg, and it's grown, and it's not a full-on big dragon, but it's still strong. I totally thought that I would have dropped it to 0 with this big attack that it ate, but did not. Of course they have pet dragon. Yeah, of course. It's Dragon Riders in the name. And I'm the kind of guy who's like, that sounds cool. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. But anyway, the Scorpion King didn't sting enough for the 3 times and you melt thing to actually be drama. The giant scorpions stuck around for longer than I intended, but also were stunned. So while killing them did produce the little swarms of like mini scorpions, slower than I would have liked. And since the sting wasn't really a big deal, I don't think the envelop actually will mean as much. In fact, the fight did not conclude that session. When we left off, the Scorpion King was really hurt, and like the giant scorpions had just been killed. We're like at round 3, which is slower than I had imagined. And I think if the giant scorpions had like maybe 40 or 50 hit points instead of like 70, maybe that would have been a better adjustment. But you fight and you learn. And where we left off, some people are really hurt. The monk who was scouting originally was the one who got like stung really badly and reduced to like 3 hit points and has been just kind of staying out of the fight now, though he did get healed a little bit. And the dragon that the dragon rider ranger player has got really hurt but is okay. There were also some really epic things that happened during it. Like dragon rider ranger dude was like, we're going to ride up into that crevice or that trench, and we're going to go where it's hiding. We're going to confront it head on. And they did. They had an intense grapple with the Scorpion King. There's even a moment where they rolled equal, which you just can't write. And they were like embroiled in this intense battle. The rider used the rapier that he had to like pin the tail into the Scorpion King to kind of like neutralize its sting after it initially like really hurt the dragon. It was very cool. And again, something that you can't write. I've mentioned it before, but when players ask if they can do like special things like that, I usually just say, if you roll high enough, yes. Like, can I lop off an arm of like this enemy? If you roll high enough over their armor class, I go, yeah, sure. And he did. It was very cool, very cool. My fight did not go exactly as I wanted, but we're at this. Honestly, it's this unique space that I think only really a GM can enter, where the fight was actually fine, if not good. It was challenging. People were responding to it as if it were challenging. Some really cool stuff on the player's part happened. People's things were useful. I used legendary resistances for the boss, but I had him eat the scorpion swarms that dropped, which meant I hadn't thought about this, but if they're tied to the scorpion swarms that drop, that means he can't legendary resistance until that happens. So there were a couple times where the giant scorpions were still alive and there weren't swarms around, and he ate stuff, but I got kind of lucky and that he didn't get like totally paralyzed or anything. And something I want to throw out is there's a tactic that I've realized I use that maybe I should ease up on a little bit. I don't think anybody was super annoyed, but like there are those trenches in the ceiling and in the floor, and I deliberately had those thinking the Scorpion King is going to go in there and people won't be able to see him or target him as easily. He'll have cover. He'll have full cover, which means you can't target him with stuff unless you get up to the edge of the trench and like look up and try to hit him. And that's like a defensive. Enemies being out of sight from the players so they can't target them as easily is something that I'm realizing I do quite often, and no one got upset about it, but I did end this fight thinking, okay, I should really try to avoid doing that for a little while, because there have been 2 strong enemies close together that have kind of done the same thing. My like earth demon Diabound was like in the earth, and it's like you can't target him, he's in the earth. Eat it. And then there's wasn't there an underground giant a couple sessions ago who had that going for it as well? Yes. My earthbound demon was like down in the earth. It was like you can't target him, he's in the earth, which people accepted. And then this one is like, hey, the Scorpion King is hiding in this trench and doesn't want to get hit. You're gonna have to get closer, which is a little better. But for that reason exactly, does Snooter. For that reason exactly, I've been thinking, okay, I gotta ease up on this. I gotta find like a new tactic. It always annoys me whenever I'm in a game and the GM discovers one tactic and just starts stapling it to everybody, and I'm like, come on. So, I'm definitely gonna think about that for future bosses or whatever. But anyway, the fight is great, but it didn't work the way that I had hoped it would work. And I was really disappointed mostly about the sting thing. I thought the corrosive poison, you get stung 3 times and your character melts, I thought would be very dramatic and cool and, high energy. And he just doesn't sting enough for that to be a thing. And if the giant scorpions aren't intended to like hang around for too long, one would argue they wouldn't help issues very much as far as like having their own stings count towards that. So it's really one mechanic that I thought would be cool and just absolutely ended up not being a thing. But the fight worked overall, even if it didn't flow the way that I had intended. It worked overall. I think people are having a good time. They're gonna finish up this next time and get some loot. They're going to find the way down to the next floor here as well. Originally, I was going to have like the whole thing cover the way down, like covered in sand, and it would be like a puzzle. Like you need to get this sand out of the way before you can get to the stairs underneath. But I ended up changing my mind about that, if only because, if only because I myself am like, nah, man. We just had like a big boss fight. They've been on this level for a while. Just have it be normal stairs, man. That whole sand thing is actually from the original. I don't know if it's this notebook exactly, but like my original like Dungeon 25 challenge where I made a bunch of rooms. One room I made was it's the way down, but it's covered in sand, and you have to get rid of the sand because I was thinking in a very old school Renaissance, like old school D&D mindset, because they were big on obstacles and puzzles and things like that. And I originally put that here. Was like, I don't know, man. Sounds kind of annoying. Let's not actually. And then I didn't. Maybe. I mean, when your DM tells you you have one poison counter and will be dead after 2 more, you kind of start to sweat a bit. Uh, this is worth considering, Snooter. There is value simply in the threat of something. I think that you are correct. I don't know it for certain, but people were probably at least a little concerned about that. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, anyway, it's not much of a campaign diary because what happened last session, they dealt with these other trap rooms and then got into the boss fight. Though there was a funny bit that I will share. One of the rooms, because I've been describing all the rooms that are basically the same, and then the trick is you need to find a trap within the room. And this one room, which is like it's 20 by 20 room, it's got this tiered black marble like steps in like an octagon basically, and then there's a platform that's on top of that, and then the gold plate in each room was on top of that. And people were scrutinizing the room for traps, and someone spotted. They looked on the steps. I really like something that Shadow Dark RPG does, and I implement it in my own D&D game as much as I can, which is if you're looking exactly where a trap is, you find it, which just kind of makes sense. You shouldn't. I'm not a fan of the if you roll badly, it doesn't happen because like sometimes it doesn't make sense. And I don't think you were ever intended to make the roll the end all be all. And one person was looking at the steps. It's funny because of the barbarian. The barbarian player was like looking at the steps, and I described, well, the steps are all even except for one that like dips a little bit. I thought, so clearly now they just know that that's where the trap is. He spotted it. The barbarian player wants to go over there, and he wants to like push or pull the thing to like see if it's a plate. And internally I go, okay, are you really about to trip this thing anyway? You found it. I let him walk over there and I pay attention to what he says because he specifically says push and pull. Well, push, it triggers the trap, obviously. So we had this moment where he spotted the trap anyway, was suspicious of it, and then because he said push and then pull, if he said pull, I was first, then I was fully willing to say, okay, you pull it. It's pretty obvious it's some kind of pressure thing, and then we'd have like a moment. But because he said push or pull, he pushed it, and then some slots just opened up, and a bunch of scarabs like flooded into the room. And he had to laugh himself, like, "Oh, it was probably a pressure plate," and I just fucking pushed it. Why did I do that? And we all had fun. But I share this one not just because it's funny, but because I find myself, and I think this is a common thing for GMs out there, feeling like you need to go to great lengths to obscure and hide. Hashtag barbarian moment. Exactly. Hashtag barbarian moment. I think that a lot of GMs, and I know I, feel like you have to try really hard, ultra hard to hide things. Because the minute a player picks up on a hint of any kind, then they'll immediately get it. And sometimes that's true, and sometimes it's not. And I think there's more space, more allowance that you actually have for that kind of thing than you would think. And when I catch myself feeling that way, I try to like let people find things out, which is another thing. You feel like everything has to be super hidden, and like it really doesn't. If people make the move to find out the thing, you should let them find out the thing. It's okay. But also you feel like, oh, if they pick up on even one hint of the trap or one hint of the twist, they will immediately have it all solved. And sometimes that's true. And sometimes you have a color matching puzzle where people just blatantly don't color match, and then have to retreat from the dungeon completely. To reference my Robin Goblin series from forever ago. Though one could argue that was also solving a puzzle by people voting, and solving by committee, which maybe is not the best way to solve puzzles and not truly player accurate. The snooter goes lol. I remember that. Yes, yes, good memories, good times, good times. But my point being, you think that once the players clock one single detail, they'll have it completely figured out. And I found that it's actually a coin flip. Sometimes they get a detail that you think will solve everything, and like it doesn't for them. Or sometimes they walk into it anyway. And I think I've probably done the same thing myself. So it's not even like a stupid players. It's like, no, I just think that happens. And because this is my stream and I get to talk about whatever I want, I'm going to also diverge slightly to talk about like twists as well. Because oftentimes people go, twists are really hard to run. You have to like really try to hide it. And it's totally ruined if the players catch on early. Which is like, I normally don't do twists because in a very defeatist way, I feel like, like whatever, you know, like it is difficult to like truly surprise people, and you kind of just have to like lay the tracks, and then if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. But something that I could make a short YouTube video about, or maybe a YouTube short, I don't know, is the idea that sometimes it's actually okay if your players like guess a twist in advance. Players actually like being right and like having figured something out. Like I've rarely seen a player more engaged than when they like pick up on something and they're correct and they're like, "Oh, I knew it." And depending on the level of the twist, I don't even think it ruins that much. If it's the twist to your whole campaign and it hinges on it, then maybe it's not as simple as some guy going, just let him, it's fine. But obviously you want to avoid like making it impossible to guess, and then it's like, okay, I couldn't have guessed that. A video that I saw once entitled how J.K. Rowling writes mysteries, but has since been changed to how a turf writes mysteries because what's his face is cool like that. Talks about how like in the original Harry Potter like books, it's possible to solve the like twist to the story if you're paying attention to clues, but the clues are sufficiently not sabotaged, camouflaged, so it's not blatantly obvious. And like a good twist, the video's ultimate argument was a good twist is something you could have figured out if you had been paying attention and you'd like deduced it correctly, and a bad twist is something that you had no way of knowing in advance. And you just go, oh, okay, I guess. I recently rewatched Hbomberguy's video essay about like the Sherlock TV series, and he makes the same argument. Only he makes the argument this show is bad because you can't solve these mysteries in advance. And it's just someone who knows stuff you couldn't have possibly known. And it's like, oh, okay. Which is not very impactful. I once successfully did a twist following this principle, and I think part of it was luck, but it was still pretty fun. I once ran a game, or I once made my own game, creatively called Martial Arts High School. 3 guesses what it was about. And there was a point where I did like a short revival of it for like a month because I do this thing where my friend will ask for something for his birthday month and then I will do the same. And I had this old plot that I dusted off for it that I thought would be cool. Basically, the ultimate antagonist would be this girl who was raised by like loser otaku parents, and she was one too, but she decided high school was the place where she could reinvent herself. And so she went through grueling training in the most popular martial art. And I did a Google search of like, what's the most popular like martial art in Japan? And she picked, it was judo, by the way. And so she picked that, but she also like did a bunch of fashion work and how to socialize properly. She trained super hard. She decided that she would eliminate her old self and claim this new life and new image for herself and for her future. But to do that, she must erase her past because she is like Diavolo, the villain of part 5 of JoJo's. And so the problem is, one, there are people who like knew her in middle school who happen to end up at this school that she must eliminate because she must wipe out the past. But the twist part that I'm proud of is very first session, I have her on the train going to school with everybody else. And I want this scene to happen where she spills coffee on herself and decides that she has to destroy everybody who was in that car because they saw her spill coffee on herself, and that ruins her new start. Because, I mean, come on. I wanted that scene there, so I thought, okay, I'm going to nestle it. I'm going to try to camouflage it by describing 3 things on the train as background stuff. And I'm going to put her in the middle. And even better, there was a reference to like some characters or offspring of some characters from the first campaign of Martial Arts High School that I was going to do at the end. And I thought that'll pull attention. So I described, hey, you're on this train and you're going to school. You see a couple of guys who are talking about their latest gotcha pulls. You see a girl who, when the train stops suddenly, spills coffee on herself. And you see a collection of kids with like bleached hair who are talking with each other about how the first day is supposed to be really strong and intense. And I gave some descriptors that made people recognize like whose offspring the kids were. And I thought, all right, cool. I've camouflaged it, maybe. But the other possibility is nobody remembers this scene. So then, it was only for a month, so it was like 4 sessions, maybe 5. We keep playing, stuff happens, people are having a grand time. I introduce the plot. I may turn this into a talk about some. I have a cool martial arts high school idea. I'm not going to interrupt for right now, but I'm going to talk about it later, I think, because why not? But anyway, that happens. They have their first day of school. That's session 1. Session 2, session 3, like they go by fine. I think it's session 3 actually, that they end up running into uh, the girl directly, but she's in like this full like bodysuit that um obscures like her identity because we're going full Diavolo here. Um, and so they fight her. They end up unmasking her or like ripping the suit. And then when I turned and I said, "Okay, you see," and you reveal who this is. Do you remember the girl from the tram? And this is the most successful I think I've ever been in a twist like this because everybody immediately knew who I was talking about from like 2 sessions ago and like remembered the context and I nailed it. Everybody reacted like, "Oh, you mean the girl that spilled coffee on herself?" And I had my moment where she got to describe about how she trained so hard and she's done everything to make a new future for herself. But to truly transcend her old self, she must eliminate the past. And everybody knew exactly what I was talking about, and it had the effect you wanted. Most successful I've been on a twist ever. And maybe the short amount of time. Wasn't this a character from the Chunibyo anime? I have not seen that, so it might be. I had this idea forever ago and I thought it was cool. Maybe someone else also thought it was cool and it exists. It's not that hard of an idea to come up with. So maybe. I haven't seen whatever that is, Snooter, so probably. It worked. And maybe it's the short amount of time that helped the twist, but like it worked. And if someone had guessed it in advance, I was ready to like lean into it. And other times where people recognize stuff that I'm referencing and go, "You mean like Yu-Gi-Oh?" or "Oh, I bet this is going to happen." I typically either copy Matt Colville and respond to them by going, "That'd be cool." But I use that response for things that I'm not planning as well. Or sometimes I'll just go, "Yes." Like I actually legitimately in my D&D game talked about how there was this magic, great and terrible, that was locked away centuries ago. I used the Yu-Gi-Oh dialogue and one of the players said, "Oh, like Yu-Gi-Oh?" And I just looked at him and I said, "Yes." And then I just continued. Maybe it's just me, but I think when players guess things, it's best to just either go yes and continue or just I don't know, say like that'd be cool or something like that and like move on if you want to be mischievous. I don't think it's as big a deal as it is most of the time. We see people freak out about that kind of thing. There are contexts where that is a big problem. Um, so like obviously it doesn't apply there. But in general, I advocate for not being too sensitive when people recognize your stuff. And sometimes people like recognizing stuff. I know I have had my moment of pointing at something and going, "It's like that thing." And the GM didn't like it and felt really bad, like I was insulting him. And it was like, "No, man, I was actually excited. I was really into it, man. It's okay. It's okay." Basically, it's okay. Everybody's campaigns and stuff is just them ripping off their stuff. And guess what? The original campaigns were people ripping off stuff. It's just ripping off stuff, but inaccurately enough that you end up changing it all the way down. There's an old book that like I was reading about like the early days of D&D, and I loved to death reading about these nerds who just took stuff from books they liked and modeled their new game after it. And I'm like, "Yeah, man, yeah, that's how it is. That's how it is, and it's cool. It's fine." And if you're like me, you always want it done a little differently anyway, and then it may as well be original. Who cares? The thing about Martial Arts High School, I think this might be a place to talk about, if only because I enjoy talking about it. An idea I had that I don't think I'll ever actually be able to use for a game. It's weird and it's, I would say, on the experimental side, and maybe you'll understand once I've explained it. So, I really like younger Toguro from Yu Yu Hakusho. Yu Yu Hakusho is an anime series, and one of the antagonists is this dude that's like buff and a martial artist. And there's a point that really spoke to me where he is mad about how humans live such short lives. They live long enough to figure out what they want to do with their lives, only to just see it ripped from them with age and time passing. And he's really resentful about that. There's other stuff to him, but like that's a thing and it's really cool and it was impactful on me. I think it'd be really interesting for a plot or an aspect of a plot of a game where you're playing high school students who do martial arts. I think it would be interesting to have to tackle the theme of whether or not prioritizing training over anything else in your life and the cost of true devotion and whether or not it's worth it. I think that'd be a really interesting thing to tackle. And I had this idea that I think you'll understand why I can't do it unless it's with a specific group, and even then, maybe not. And here it goes. I had an idea where I wanted to basically have an antagonist of a campaign of Martial Arts High School that was basically younger Toguro. He is furious that anybody practices martial arts for fun and basically hates the idea of casual spaces. And he goes out of his way to brutalize people who host these casual spaces with the idea that you're ruining the martial arts by practicing for fun or not taking it seriously. Stop doing that, or I'm going to break your leg bad enough you can never do martial arts again. And the player characters would run into this dude. They would have their own tussle with them. Maybe there'd be like a moment where he acknowledges, like, you take it seriously. Why are you fighting me? Don't you feel angry? Don't you feel mad that people like that, and he would point to someone who isn't good at martial arts, are being deemed the same as us? But that's beside the idea. The idea that doesn't work, or is kind of funky, is I thought it'd be interesting if after the initial fight, where the player characters can't beat him, and he defeats them, or basically defeats them, I gave an option, and I was like, okay, from this point forward, if you want to train to defeat this guy, you can. But to train hard enough to defeat this guy, you will need to abandon everything. If you do this special course, you will go to the sessions, but you will only be able to participate in half of it. The half that happens at school, you're still going to school, so you're there. But anything that happens after school, anything that happens outside of school, you don't get to participate in. You can't leave the call. You can't go do something else. You need to sit here and not participate. Watch people play the game. You can't chip in. You can't say anything. You have to just sit here. And that player would have to do that for the rest of the game. The player would just not be able to play in like part of, sometimes less, sometimes more, but at least like roughly half of the session, you sit there. And I would deliberately have like NPCs in their lives, like approach them to hang out, or like relationship opportunities to come up to tempt the player, because the other half would be, if you break from this, even once, you lose the special training benefit. And then the whole campaign, the idea would be they would be tempted by seeing their friends playing the rest of the session on a meta level and on a real level. But they would also have other people in their lives trying to like say, hey, come on, like, be here, live your life. You're a kid. You need to actually live life. And they would be tempted the entire time. If they made it, yes, that's fluff and brutal. Exactly. Snooter. And if they made it, if they resisted all temptations, and we would go through, like, I would role play out them like actively burning bridges through this pursuit. And if you made it all the way through the campaign to the point where you face not younger Toguro again, where everybody else will be fighting, because the way I now do bosses in Martial Arts High School, if a single enemy is stronger than the party, that enemy gets turns in between everyone's turn. If you made it all the way, that would be true, except for the person who made the training. The person who did the training would take turns 1-to-1 with the boss, while everybody else would be, you know, having turns where the boss acts between them. And I would have a moment where I describe how they're going blow for blow with not young Toguro. They're pushing him to his limit and he to theirs. And as you are marshaling your defense against him and you are throwing your own attacks, you are thinking about all the training you have done up to this point, all that you have learned, and all that you have sacrificed, traded for this moment. And then I would turn, if it worked the way I wanted, I would turn to the player who did this and I would ask them, was it worth it? And whatever answer that player gives in this ideal situation would be interesting. I would love, if I executed on this perfectly, to hear that player character's answer. Was it worth it? I think it would be incredibly interesting to hear a player say, yes, it was, and then say why. And I think it would be incredibly interesting to hear a player character say, no, it wasn't, because that would also be really cool. The problems are, first and foremost, you need a group who's willing to go hard and experimental with the role play. And I don't think I have access to people like that. Like, I just don't. Two, you are expecting someone to be okay with this, with basically not playing. Like, it'd be really difficult to police that. Desnuder says, I would argue that no player would ever choose this, but I know 2 of your ex-players who totally would. That is a third problem with this. Anybody who's not invested in like the game itself, but is like, oh, I just get to sit there and not talk and I get like a big power boost, hell yeah. It's like, it's possible that you have a player that just tackles it like that. Every premise requires you to engage with it earnestly, but I feel like this here especially opens up that avenue. So, one, you need people who go hard into the role play, and I'm not sure I have access to people who do that. Two, you would need to police it, and it would be difficult to police that. It would be difficult to prevent people from speaking up and playing and going, you're not here, and then doing it the entire time. Three, it's kind of a drag to have like that's the point. It's supposed to be a drag, but it's also a drag. And then obviously, point number 4 is if you have someone who is purely like metagame, power game brain who goes, oh, okay, sure, then it kind of defeats the whole point. Desnuder has said, this almost feels like a spite fantasy against them, lol. Kind of. I think that it's really interesting and that it would be really interesting to explore the theme of sacrifice for excellence. Because there's an idea that like there are people out there who are really, really good, but it costs you. You have to devote yourself more than anyone to get more than anyone results. And that's a hard road. And not the typical thing that you sign up for when you play a game about fighting people with martial arts moves and doing high school shenanigans. It's not deliberately like a spite fantasy against players who would come to this game, but like it kind of is. You're kind of right. I think it'd be really cool and really interesting. I don't think I could actually do that, like, period. So it's just like a thing that I have that now I've shared in this VOD that I'm like, this sounds like it would be so cool, but like, I don't think I could actually do that. It's just a fun share, an idea I had that I thought would be cool, but I can't use and I can't do. And it's not even like other ideas where if I just maneuver myself a little bit, maybe I could try it. It's like, no, I just can't. I don't think I can actually do this. It's interesting. It's interesting when you hear the full explanation and you're my kind of person, you might go, wow, that sounds really interesting. But I don't think I could actually fucking do it. And so there it is. DeSnooter says, no, it's a cool idea. I just agree that it's impossible to make it work. Yeah. Not to fall for accidental reverse psychology, but I would argue it's not impossible to make it work. I don't think I can. Which is maybe hair splitting, but whatever. Cool idea. Now it exists in this VOD, as opposed to other ideas I have that I can do something with. That sounds like a lead-in, but like I don't have anything right off the top of my head. I think it'd be cool. It would be cool. I can't do it though. Assuming that I ever run Martial Arts High School again, which I don't know, maybe. I typically run games that actually like aren't made by me. Though it was fun, like redoing the Martial Arts High School rules. I made a better game the second time around than I did the first time around, I'll tell you that. For some reason, the first time around, I thought, oh, I don't want stats because stats would be too hard to do mathematically. One, I was a huge coward and should not have done that. Two, huge problem, terrible. DeSnooter says, like, if you had a player who was actually willing to go through all that just to make big number go up, they're probably not a very good player to have in the group to begin with. I can't lie. I can't argue with you on that. That's true. I'm really lucky to now not have people in my life, or mostly. I mostly have people in my role playing groups who do not think that way. And like, that's good. I don't hold ill will towards people who get excited by that, but I do not like being with them because it just clashes with me too much. Like, I must be immersed. I don't pay no attention to the meta, but I definitely can't deal with people, as in, I don't like dealing with people who the meta is all. It's like, well, that's no fun. Let's forget about it at least a little bit. Let's pretend that warlocks are good for a second. That's my own thing. It was fun going through the like old rules that I made and then like making a better game. I still think there are some things that could be tweaked, but there's a new version of Martial Arts High School for like, for whatever that's worth, that have rules that like work better, as if someone that knows more than zero about making their own game made them. Though I think they still could use like some improvement. I wish the game were simpler. It's okay, but there's some things that kind of hang up. Like you have like fatigue or some kind of energy, and you need to worry about running out of that. And there are like rolls to see how much fatigue stuff takes, and I think that's not good. I think it should be a static value, quite frankly, or something simpler. Because just playing it kind of hung things up a little bit. DeSnooter says, like, not to tangent. I like tangents here, it's fine. But I listened to my partner and her bestie go on for like an hour about all their favorite D&D characters they played, how broken they were, how they circumvented their... Yeah. That can be fun. I think you can be a little into that without being like hardcore. But yes, there are definitely people out there who are like, the system is what I care most about, and using system rules. And personally, I think that kind of sucks because I don't want to play in a game where I already know how things are going to go or how they're supposed to go. Like, I think that's just the worst thing ever. Like, I 100% do not like that. And when something happens that's like outside the rules or something weird, I'm like, yeah, what is this? And admittedly, not when I feel like the GM's just like doing something because, oh, this is like the most effective. But I mean, like, I will never get over the moment that I used like wraiths in D&D in 5th edition. When they hit you, they lower your maximum hit point total, and if they lower it enough, that can kill you. But it's still like something that needs to be healed, and it can't just be healed normally. Your vitality has been diminished, and you need to like re-up it. Something I don't like is that in 5th edition, you can just short rest to get out of it, and that sucks. But there was a moment where someone was like, "Oh, we've been life drained. How do we get over that?" And another person said, "Oh, you just take a short rest." "Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want me to roll to see if I would know that?" No, the moment's lost. I hate that. I actually want to be in some place where I don't like know exactly how things are supposed to work. I like I mean, I obviously want to know the rules like for my own benefit, but I 100% endorse things not working 100% how the book says it does, because that's boring. I'd never want to play a game or run a game where someone's like, "Well, because I read the book and I know how this works, that means I know how this pointless. Get out of here. Go play Warhammer or chess or something." Desnuder was not finished with their thought. Weaknesses. How they basically browbeat the DM into allowing them to get away with it all. Didn't mention a single thing about who their character was or why they acted this way. And then, after all that, she was like, "Oh, we should play D&D sometime. You're a DM, right?" Uh, Fair enough. I must retract my previous statement. Sounds awful. I would not run these people. Like, I hate to kink shame, for lack of a better word for it, but at the same time, no, thank you. Like, that just sucks in general, man. I don't want stuff to happen because like people make jokes about like that kind of stuff, but like for real, not good, not good, terrible. I don't want stuff to happen because the GM felt pressured into it. I actually spend a lot of time worrying about that kind of stuff, and then maybe like not doing stuff that maybe I wanted to do. So I'm like, I'm over the opposite. Terrible. Though at least they accidentally forewarned you to not play D&D with them or run them in D&D. So that's nice. It's always great when someone really terrible who will clash with your sensibility tells you first inadvertently and then goes, "Oh, hey, do you want to do it?" And you can be like, "No, thank you. No, thank you. It should really be a tag or a shirt." Desnuder says, "Like IRP as a social storytelling collaboration experience, not to be someone's human calculator." I mean, yeah. I like combat and like numbers and things. Don't get me wrong. I'm not all the way as you are. I don't role play purely as a social storytelling collaboration experience, but I do expect some of that. I am definitely not someone's human calculator either. That blows. I would not do that. That'd suck. It'd be terrible. I would not. I would not. Like, arguably for money, but even then, if I knew in advance, I'm not even sure for money. I'm not sure that would even be worth it. Though I have talked with my therapist before about how, like, uh, some people, money motivates them to do anything. And me, it's like, nah, I don't know, man. I'm not even sure it's worth it. But I motivate very weirdly for reasons, layered reasons. Um, but this is not going to, I'm not going to expand on that, at least not today. I am going to say, unrelated to stuff that I've mostly unrelated to stuff that I've been talking about, but just on a more casual note, I am thinking about streaming playing a video game, also known as what streamers normally do. If only because I was thinking, oh, I heard that a Baldur's Gate show's coming out, and I played Baldur's Gate 3, once to completion, but I didn't do the Dark Urge stuff, and there's other stuff that I missed that I've heard, and I've been avoiding details as good as I can on the stuff that I missed. But once the show comes out, what if people start talking even more about the stuff that I missed? Maybe I should just hurry up and do it. Snooter says, I think it would be worth it. Even if you have a couple of sucky games, you now have DM for cash on your resume, which makes it easier to get more DM for cash jobs in the future. In theory, I guess. And eventually you can theoretically afford to be more choosy. Yeah, but for me, I don't think it would even be worth it. Like, maybe for you, but for me, sometimes even if money would happen, I'm like, I don't know, man. It's just not worth it. Desnooter also asks, which game did you say? And I said Baldur's Gate, but I kind of murmured it. I'm talking about Baldur's Gate 3. I could also do something where I stream and I'm like, I'm going to play the Baldur's Gate trilogy in order from best to worst. And then I would start at 1, and that would be my fun way of telling people. I actually think that the best one is the first one, and the second best one is the second one, and Baldur's Gate 3 is still pretty good, but I think I actually like it the least out of the 3. But that'd just be me being funny and inviting people to be like, what? Because I'm like, yeah, that's right. I've thought about playing games just in general, but with Baldur's Gate 3, since an HBO Baldur's Gate show is supposed to be coming out, I thought maybe that would be a good reason, a good excuse to try to get the stuff that I didn't do out of the way. I even thought this morning, it'd be really cool. There's a character from my Treasure Taker series that's not going to show up probably for years that I could roleplay as her through the game. Wouldn't that be fun? Which is a hint that I might actually do it, because if there's a fun reason to do it as well, then I'll do it. I'll be a true streamer. I don't know. I might not. Depends on how I feel. It would be slightly harder than just sitting in front of a camera and talking about stuff that I want to talk about. But at the same time, it'd be a good excuse to, well, I already explained. Something I would like to do as well, actually, is in the Bleach manga, I think it's in the anime too, there's a point where the protagonist, Ichigo, has a friend who's complaining to him about him disappearing because the protagonist was doing the plot in another world, and this guy's a normal guy, and he's like, Ichigo, I was so lonely. I missed you during vacation. I was so lonely. I completed 5 RPGs in 5 days. And it's just a throwaway, funny gag line. But those are the things I latch onto the most. And I've always thought, wouldn't it be fun to try to do a challenge where I try to complete 5 RPGs in 5 days? But I figure out the year that part of Bleach takes place in, and part of my condition is it needs to be a game from before that time, which would honestly help me, because older games, sometimes some of them are shorter. What's the current Treasure Taker release rate nowadays anyway? Desnooter asks. Thank you. I love when people ask me about my projects because ego reasons. I don't think I actually haven't stated it anywhere else, but I'm fine with stating it here. The rate's going okay. I'm currently storyboarding part of the next episode that I'm going to go fully animated on, because it's an action sequence and I want to do that, but I'm already thinking I might have to compromise. My current plans, because I'm really leaning into limited animation and stuff like that, and kind of compromising on the show, because otherwise I don't think I'm actually going to make it in my lifetime. And if the new way of and also I have a new workflow inspired by my experience with the Robin Goblin series. So my current Treasure Takers plans for the rest of the year is to use this new workflow, and if it works the way I want, I will come back this November with the rest of Gargoyle Keep, which will be 4 episodes if nothing changes, and I will just release them weekly for like, like 4 weeks. So if things work the way I want, I am finishing this current season of Treasure Takers this year. But as of this moment, I have made the stuff for all of the literal next Gargoyle Keep episode, except for a fight scene at the end that I am currently storyboarding. I'm also waiting on some audio from a couple of the voice actors because I told them, hey, I don't have any money, so I'm going to have to wait. And they were like, that's cool, man. And recently I told them, hey, I have money, so could I get those voice lines from you? And they were like, sure. DeSnooter says, yeah, season 1 Bleach was something special that we just never saw again. And when we finally saw any of those characters again, it was just like, oh yeah, I forgot you existed. Yeah, kinda. Though, honestly, I'm kind of glad. I mean, at least for Tatsuki, because Tatsuki is cool, and I don't like how the series eventually ended up. And I was like, I think he would have ruined Tatsuki if she was part of things. So I'm glad that she got to avoid that. She got to stay cool. Though, admittedly, there are other characters that were part of plots that still got to be cool. Like, Yoruichi remained cool. They didn't ruin her or anything. So, I don't know. But, like, that's fine. I do like early Bleach. It's great. I like Bleach in general. I think that Kido is unreasonably cool. The fact that an anime all about swords gave us a magic system that was deeper than just magic takes energy and then just left it at that is astounding. I think doing poetry, Tatsuki was so great. DeSnooter says, yes, she was. She's great. I do love her. I think that doing magic through poetry is really evocative, and if I can ever use that for any kind of game or anything, I'm super going to. There's maybe an alternate universe where I am more artsy and I release like a book of poetry that's just like Kido spells that I have made. We're not living in that timeline, but I've thought before, that'd be kind of cool. I didn't do it. Maybe one day. When I was The Snooter asks, is there a Patreon / Kickstarter for Treasure Takers for people to get those voice actors funded? Yeah, actually. Because of reasons, I don't post about it, but I'm going to once I start releasing new episodes, I'm going to post about it more. But there is a Treasure Takers Kickstarter already that is free. Like, I don't charge anybody. All my posts are free that you could look at right now. And sometimes I use it to talk about the project, but I'll also talk about like some of my life stuff as well, because no one's looking at it except for like one of my friends. So I started kind of half using it as a journal, half using it as like a Treasure Takers thing. But there's still plenty of Treasure Takers stuff. I post every Monday. So if there are any diehard Treasure Takers fans, like I wish I had a backlog of like project developmental stuff that I could read that goes back for like years. You're in luck. Maybe there's a link. Maybe I should put a link in like the description, but I'll also look it up right now and post it for those of you who are with me currently. The big reveal. Is there a Treasure Takers Patreon? There's been one for years. I just don't share it. Why? Because like many artists, I don't grasp the pivotal last step of actually sharing what you are doing. There we go. I have posted the link in the chat, and also I will put it in the description of this video. But basically, my budget is, because, Patreon only works if you have a big audience, and I do not have a big audience, though it's a miracle I have an audience at all. So rest assured, I love all of you. But the budget for Treasure Takers is basically just my own money, which is pretty much what it's been the entire time. And sadly, indie animation, that's basically what it is. Like, if you're big enough, I see some people selling merch, and like, God, I wish I had people who would buy merch and enough money to make merch in the first place. I made like those Robin Goblin stickers, and like one dude bought them. That's not true. I had a couple of friends who bought them from me in person, and one dude who bought from the Etsy store proper and was like, I am Robin, Goblin Thief. And I was like, you're gold. You're gold, man. Here's a sticker. Like, yeah, that's how indie animation goes. You have to fund it yourself, basically forever. And if you're lucky enough that enough people like it, maybe you can get not enough money to be okay, but enough money to like keep going. Slightly better, I guess. What kind of fucking idiot chooses to do this to himself? Disnooter says, yeah, anime magic systems are often heckin' lackin'. After Mistborn, I'm kind of spoiled and can't go back to what's the scouter say about his power level, and then they just forget about power levels. Reasonable. Though I've heard of Mistborn. It's written by that guy that, like, when I wasn't looking, everybody read his books and were like, wow, this is so good, isn't it? I don't know. I only heard the name Brandon Sanderson after everybody seemed to know who he was. And I was like, okay, cool. I don't know. So I may. A treasure taker's Patreon exists. It's all free. You could look at it right now if you want. You could be my second subscriber, maybe my third or fourth. Disnooter says you should heckin' read them. Maybe I will. I wouldn't mind reading more and have read a little more. It started when I was working with somebody local on like a project for like showing. It was called I've forgotten the name, but it was about like black farmers and things like that in like my local area. And the person I was working with was like, hey, there's this book that tells the story of Jim from Tom Sawyer, but it tells it from his perspective. And do you want to read it? And I was like, yes. And I did. And that was cool. I used to say I would like to read more, and I found myself reading a little more because I did that, and then my friend got me like a compilation of Elric. The graphic audiobook versions are so good. Noted. Audiobooks seem cool. I tried one once. You know, but reading more has been cool. I got like a friend got me like this compilation of Elric stories, which are like this old school like sword and sorcery guy, Elric of Melniborn, or I read it as Melbourne. I don't know how it's actually pronounced. And then I started reading this book about the history of like role playing games, which was interesting but dry at the same time. I feel ashamed that I didn't like make it through it. And then on recommendation from someone, because someone sees one of my game shop group people sees my pen sketches that I post all the time, like daily, from like the challenge that I'm doing. And he recommended me a book called My Favorite Thing is Monsters, like a graphic novel called My Favorite Thing is Monsters. And it's about this young kid living in New York who's really into monsters and an outcast, like a social outcast, and it gets into like other stuff. Definitely not what I was expecting, but it also cool and a work of art. And the whole thing is a graphic novel where the person uses pen to make the illustrations. It looks really cool. It is really cool. I would recommend it, though with the tag that the plot gets pretty harrowing at times. So just be prepared for that. You know, something that really sticks in my mind, I checked out that graphic novel from the library. And when I was leaving the library, there were like two I say chicks all the time. Saying girl sounds weird to me, and saying woman sounds weird to me. So this person looked around my age level or like in their 20s. Let's just put that out there. This chick, like walking by, like saw it and said, "Oh, it's one of my favorites." And I said, "Oh, yeah, it's recommended." And as I continued reading this book and it got deeper and started exploring like this kid growing up in a place that's like really multicultural but also really dangerous and slowly getting exposed to like the seedier elements of the real world in between like other stuff. The book is really cool, but as I kept reading, I kept on thinking, so this isn't the kind of book that I would point at someone getting it and going, "Oh, it's one of my favorites." And so I just think about that girl, and I'm like, the enthusiasm is reasonable, but it definitely wouldn't have been my choice. Who is this woman? I'll never know. Somebody that thinks that this book is good, and it is, but it's not the kind of thing that I would point to someone who has it and go, "Oh, it's one of my favorites." Like I'm trying to think of a good comparison, and I just can't. My favorite thing is Monsters. Look it up, check it out. I think it's cool. That's the main takeaway. What the fuck, asshole. That's my main takeaway from this, I think. So I may try streaming a video game at some point. My campaign went all right, but the Scorpion King boss fight didn't flow exactly as I planned. So, whatever. I have the script that I recorded talking about the fight and its finer points of construction that I was going to make a YouTube video out of. But I lost Steam on that, and I might not lose. I might unloose Steam on that. I might revisit it. I might not. I like the idea of making a YouTube video, but I've found that I'm kind of weird, and like I need projects to be like quick or make project progress quickly, kind of. Obviously, Treasure Takers is the exception because it's been like 5 years that I've been chasing this thing, and I'm not going to stop. It has become my dark tower. Um, but I don't know. It's weird. Stuff that takes a while kind of messes with me in a way that I can't really articulate. And I've talked to my therapist about. I can't quite articulate this. Ah, I see. The conversation was more meaningful than that. I may use an excuse to play Baldur's Gate 3 and stream it. Or I may play something else. I don't know. I technically streamed myself playing a video game once. I don't think anybody saw it, but like I did. It was Bomb Rush Cyberpunk because like I like that game and it's like smooth and relatively easy to play. I've thought about streaming myself like animating and stuff, which like other people do, and I could do. So far, it's just easier for me to like do it than like do it and stream it, but that might happen at some point. And I like doing these, so I'll probably continue doing these streams where I talk about my campaign and the most recent developments, and then also other things. Other things, my YouTube videos that aren't YouTube videos, because it's a VOD. I guess that's a type of YouTube video. I even thought about taking like excerpts from this and editing them down. I haven't done it, but I've thought about it. And maybe one day I shall. Desnooter says, this cashier randomly asked me about my King's Baylet necklace once, and I had to try to recommend and warn about Berserk to this tiny woman without sounding like a total creep. I can imagine. I can imagine. That would be. I can totally imagine that must have been rough. You like say, "Oh, it's from a dark fantasy series," and then you think, well, that tag's probably not strong enough. Yeah, I bet that was something. Like, shit. My capacity to explain it. My ability to explain within the space that is the accepted amount of time for an interaction with a random person does not align. Yeah, no. I bet that was funny, but also like, what do I fucking say? So I guess the natural question is, what did you do? Did you give up? Did you try your best? Did you just go, yeah? Probably not, but I'm curious. What did you do, Snooter? What did you do when faced with such a problem? How did you overcome? And while we ponder this, I ran Star Wars recently. There's like an on and off again, not on and off again. It's like every 2 sessions, my friend GMs, IGM one thing of like an ongoing Star Wars campaign. I also did that Sunday. January, I was given like the month off. Desnooder responds, tried my best, was not great, did not overcome. 1 out of 10, do not recommend. Mhm. I think that's about as good as one can expect to do, especially when it comes out of nowhere like that. So, do not recommend? Yeah, I bet. Mhm. As I was saying, as like a cliff notes, because I'm probably going to stop streaming soon here. Uh, Also, Sunday, we finally got back to like a Star Wars campaign I run every so often, and that was all right. I didn't spend as much time preparing as I usually do because I didn't feel like it. It's weird. I like the campaign well enough, but I agreed a little too easily. So there are some times where I'm not super feeling it and just kind of push through. In the same way, I feel like some directors like make movies that they're not super enthusiastic about, but they're like, yeah, you know. So that makes it sound bad. Game's been fun. Like it's fine. I just I ran Saga Edition Star Wars once, and I always liked the idea of returning to it. But I had originally envisioned returning to it for like a short run, a movie, like 6 sessions or so, an adventure, not like a campaign. But campaign is what I was asked for, and I just said sure because sometimes I do the thing where I say sure and roll with something because why not? And then later go, was that really a good idea, dude? And the answer is maybe not. I'm in it now. I don't mean to mention like therapy all the time, but it's something else that's come up with my therapist and we've talked about. Desnooder says, I mean, she said she would still check it out, but like there was a lot of stammering and trying to make the best out of an impossible task. Yeah, sounds about right. Sounds about right. I recently recommended something to somebody, but it's not actually like your situation at all because I had time and was talking to a friend. But I'm going to be selfish and share anyway. Though I guess the relating thread is I felt a little weird about it afterwards, but for reasons that don't really match up. The guy who runs the Shadow Dark RPG campaign that I'm currently in, the guy who runs it is currently writing these Shadow Dark adventures that are very Norse inspired and like Norse themed and are good. Like I've proofread them, they are good. Um, but I thought, oh, I should recommend the anime Vinland Saga to him because he's not like a big anime guy, but like he will watch it and it's come up. And I thought, oh, it takes place with like Vikings and Norse stuff, and also it is ultimately a meditation on nonviolence and the practical problems that you have pursuing nonviolence. I think that he could appreciate both of those things. And so I recommended it to him. But after I recommended it to him, I immediately became paranoid that like I should have included that like the anime is a journey. It's a manga as well, but I've only seen the anime. And the first season, like those themes that I talked about are in there, but this series really takes its time to explore and to like do stuff. The first, and I'm stealing this from like the Versus Wolves podcast, but the first season of Vinland Saga is almost like a prequel to like the main story. Stuff happens. It's not boring. It's very good. I would still very much recommend it. But I became paranoid that like the dude is gonna watch it and expect the themes to be tackled immediately. And they are, but at the same time, it builds. It builds to its themes and its things, which I think makes it amazing. I was very impressed by it and still remain very impressed by it. But I was like, oh no, it builds, and I didn't say that. I should have said that. It's just me being paranoid about something that's not going to matter. I'm sure it's fine. He reads, he does stuff. I doubt it's going to be a major hurdle if he checks it out at all, which he might not. We are not the same, but I shared anyway. And I guess stealth recommendation for Vinland Saga, because I think it's really good. Well, it's not about a pacifist warrior. Because Desnuder said, meh, am not a fan of the pacifist warrior trope. It's not just one guy not fighting. The series itself is about violence and non-violence in like, it's difficult for me to describe, but the story is not, there is a warrior who refuses to hurt people. Like, it's not, it's more than that. I'm not going to push you to check it out because, like, don't worry about it. But I have to. I'm responding because I like it and I think it's good. And seeing someone go, just a warrior that doesn't fight, boring. And I'm like, it's not that. It's better. It's better than that. It's way better than that. I'm very impressed by it and think it's really good. But I'm not. I'm not gonna like push unless I think someone might legit be interested in it. And the guy I recommended it to, I thought might legit be interested in it. Fucking. Anyway. It's good. It's a manga. It's an anime. It's good. I'm anime only on it. And it's good. Anyway. I think that that's enough stream. I've hit the points that I wanted to talk about and then some. So may as well leave off when we're not sputtering for extra points and shit. So that's me for this Tuesday. Next Tuesday, roughly the same. I was late today because I was doing stuff, but like, you know, next Tuesday, 10:30, unless something happens. Maybe I'll play a video game. Maybe I'll just continue talking like this. I'll probably at least do a little bit of talking. And other than that, new Robin Goblin comes out tomorrow. I'm going to continue working on Treasure Takers, same as I always have. There's a series of interlinked one-shots that I'm working on right now that I intend to release in some fashion. I'm just going to keep on keeping on. So, Desnuder says, if you get your TTS working, you can draw while on these streams. I could. I think I might be a little distracted, but I could. Oh, text to speech. I don't know, man. I don't like that. Like, maybe it's something that I'll get over, but like, I don't know. I don't like the idea of, I don't like text to speech in the stream. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to embrace it. I don't know. Disneuter also says, also, don't know if Baldur's Gate games are real time or not, but text to speech would be helpful there too. That's the thing. I want to reject text to speech, But if you're paying attention to a game, obviously it's useful. I can clearly see why it's a useful tool, but I also don't like it because so we'll see. We'll see. But until then, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me, and I hope that folks' weeks are cool. Catch you around.